Penny has a problem. And Penny's problem is that there were a lot of people who were on this subway train. He's the only one who decided to apply lethal force to choke the life out of Jordan Neely. Nobody else did. So if he's going to make the argument, my life was in danger and the other people were in danger, how so? Gun, weapon, was the guy what, just yelling? They're going to have to make that argument.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I think your previous guest was good in showing that reasonableness is the standard here, both in New York and in Texas and presumably in other states. So the question will be, was it reasonable to use really force at all, but to use force to this extent? And I think your point is well stated. I don't think he will have a good argument that he should have used force. I am kind of confused here, though, as to why Mr. Bragg's office charged him with manslaughter rather than murder. What generally happens when you go to a grand jury is they're supposed to give you the charge that they think the evidence supports, but customarily prosecutors go to them with a potential charge, and sometimes that changes. And the reason I'm confused here is because manslaughter in New York is a reckless killing, which means you didn't intentionally or knowingly do it, but there was a substantial risk of harm that you disregarded. And putting somebody in a chokehold is much different than putting them in, another kind of hold, right? Like if he had just kept his body such that he couldn't move, that might make more sense than choking him. But choking him, you know that the likely outcome is a person is going to expire if you hold them too long. So I'm interested in seeing how this charge bears out, but I think your point is well stated. I don't think he's got a strong defense at all because it'll be very hard to show that he was reasonably in fear of any harm coming to him and or that force was necessary if you got a train full of people who did not think that that was appropriate because they set the benchmark.
And that right here, Kelly, that he also has to deal with, you're on a public transit system. Folks are recording. So we saw what happened. Now, we don't have, well, first of all, what has not been released is video of what took place before, but we don't know what was all shot by various people. That way we can see what preceded the chokehold.
You're right about that, but at the same time, I agree with what Matt is saying, and I think we're all on the same page here in that I am confused as to why I only see a charge of manslaughter when, as lawyers, we know that the saying is you can indict a ham sandwich, and considering that the jury is, siloed and in a private setting such that pretty much they can talk amongst themselves by way of the DA just presenting whatever they want to the grand jury. I don't understand how the DA thought it was reasonable to not add the second degree murder charge, right? Because we don't know whether there's malice, because that would be first. But second is like you killed somebody, and I don't see any negligence here. It seemed like it was pretty intentional. So it seems like they are already feeding into the court of public opinion on the side that Mr. Penny did not necessarily do anything wrong, because otherwise second degree murder would be one of the charges in the indictment. That's my opinion.
All right, Cole.
Well, Roland, one, I knew charges was going to come here. Two, when Daniel Penny used a lethal chokehold. Now, keep in mind, he was a Marine, okay? So he has training in self-defense. You put a lethal chokehold on somebody for 15 minutes. Now, you can knock somebody out with that chokehold between 10 to 30 seconds. You had him in that chokehold for 15 minutes. So he also has to justify in court each minute, why'd you still have him in that lethal chokehold? The other thing is, if you feared for your life or the life of others, especially if you fear for his life, why didn't you try to get away? I'm not familiar with struggling with somebody for 15 minutes because you fear for your life like that. And what threat did Jordan Neely pose in the 10th minute, the 11th minute, the 12th minute, et cetera? So, and then also, these were charges filed by the DA's office, not from an indictment from a grand jury. From my understanding, it's still going before a grand jury, so maybe they'll come back with second-degree murder charges.
And that right there, again, what still just jumps out at me on this, Matt, is this notion that I acted in self-defense before something happened. When a person is not brandishing a weapon, anything along those, let's just say, for the sake of conversation here, that Jordan Neely walked up to him and said, "I'm gonna knock you out." You still took an action that killed somebody.
I mean, yeah, that's true. I can see, obviously, having done this work, I can see a circumstance where somebody's not brandishing a weapon. A good example would be if he continued to motion towards his pockets as though he had a weapon, right? That 12 people might think that that's a circumstance where you're reasonably in fear for your life. But here, I don't think you have that at all. And I think what's already happening with the common character assassination we see in the media is they're talking about other circumstances where Jordan Neely allegedly attacked other people on the subway and that kind of thing. But I don't see that evidence here. So that's one, immaterial. Two, the same kind of character assassination we always see. But three, is going to make Daniel Penny's case that much harder if there's not anything he can point to substantiate that he was in reasonable fear, because that's what the law does. It puts a duty on the person claiming self-defense to show that they were in reasonable fear, right, of their safety. So if that fear is not believed or is not reasonable, you can be convicted every day of the week. And that's what I suspect 12 people do in this case.
And I think for me, what I see here, Kelly, what I see here is you take this action, and what's amazing is to sit here and watch all of these nutcases on the right hail this guy as a hero. And it shows you the complete and utter disregard we have for folks who have mental issues, folks who may be homeless. This notion that, yeah, it's okay to kill this guy, society won't miss him.
Well, I think it has more to the added layer with the people on the right regarding this issue is that this was an unhoused, mentally ill Black man. I do not think that the vitriol from the right would be as vitriolic had this young man been white and had this young man been white and killed by another white man, or further, had this young man been white and killed by a Black man. I don't think that we would be seeing the discourse that we are seeing now amongst the right regarding this issue. At the end of the day, this was a young Black man who was mentally ill. This was a young Black man who was mentally ill and unhoused. And frankly, not to make it a stereotype, this happened in New York City. He is not the only one who has these issues. He is not the only one who is going through this. And it would be terrible precedent if Mr. Penny were to, God forbid, be acquitted of these charges or anything of that sort. But I think it's a terrible precedent now, the fact that he has only been charged with or indicted with manslaughter, when according to the video that we have seen and according to the legal experts that we have heard from, he could have been indicted for second-degree murder with everything going on. So right now, it's not. It's unfortunate that this is happening right now, but from what I'm hearing on the right, it's par for the course.
So see, the thing here for me, Michael, which makes this thing so bothersome, is that when you listen to these people, what we have this attitude again in this society that these things that this guy was a worthless human being who deserved to be killed because he was so-called loud and threatening people on a subway.
Yeah, Roland, and a lot of these people who are echoing that, a lot of them on Coup Plotter TV, Fox News, a lot of these are white supremacists. Okay, let's be clear. These are the same people who cheered on Donald Trump when he was on CNN lying just the other night. Okay, these are the same people who we see over and over again who attack Black Lives Matter, et cetera. But let me just say this very quickly. To have a lethal chokehold on Jordan Neely for 15 minutes does not sound like self-defense. That sounds like torture to me. Okay, number one. Number two, I don't know how many black people were on that subway, but God damn it, if you see somebody trying to execute one of us, I hope somebody would stand up and stop that, intervene. Okay, that's totally uncalled for. So, George Floyd, the knee on George Floyd's neck was 9 minutes and 26 seconds, if I remember correctly. That's a hold from jujitsu that cuts off the flow of blood to the brain. This was 15 minutes, okay? So we got to have some respect for ourselves and intervene, especially when we see somebody white trying to execute somebody like one of us like this. We have to have more respect for ourselves also.
Well, again, I mean, and that's the thing for me that really that bothers me here, Matt. It is a state of mind. What we have in this country now is a state of mind that there are some people, a lot of people, who don't mean anything, who are throwaways, who if we kill them, we don't care. It sort of reminds me of the business owner in San Francisco, just walking up, I'm just gonna just water spray this homeless person. I'm just gonna spray whatever, bug spray or bear spray. I'm just gonna sit here and douse them. There is a lack of humanity. And again, I get it. You're on the subway, and look, I've ridden the subway in New York City, and somebody's out there yelling and screaming. And look, your whole deal is like, all right, let me stand here, let me see what this fool gonna do. Let's see what his ass gonna do. But when you decide to take him down, and you are a Marine, you have been trained in hand-to-hand combat. You know the difference between detaining a man until the cops come and murdering him. And that's what Penny did. He chose to literally snuff the life. He sat there and had this man's life in his arms and said, I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah, I don't know that there's much I need to add. I think you're exactly right. And I think what we see being fomented in our country right now is exactly what you said, which is that we are allowing the othering of people that whomever, people find to be worthless or less than valuable. We see it in our state houses. We're seeing it on this subway. We see it in the media every day. And it's terrifying because what's happening is we're normalizing violence towards people, right? And we're normalizing violence towards the least of these, if you will, people afflicted with mental health. Instead of finding ways to help them and get them the treatment that they need, they're being killed in open, public on the subway. So I don't know how you curb that tide, but that's something that we're dealing with along with the erosion of democracy. And what we're saying is not only is there not a preservation of the dignity of those people, there is an active assault against history, against the truth being told in a lot of different spaces. So we have to fight against that. And I'm glad Michael said that because, there's an example of a case in the 1980s that they teach in law school where a man was shot in New York City on the subway. And it's that precise question about bystander innocence and bystander liability. Yep. And what needs to happen is people need to step in when they see something like this happening and say, man, you're going too far. And that's one of the facts that I think will hurt Daniel Penny. My understanding is somebody indicated to him that Mr. Neely had defecated on himself at some point during the time he was being choked, and he disregarded that. And that'll be a very, very difficult fact for his defense team to fight against.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.